The night was suffocatingly still, as if the world itself was holding its breath in anticipation of an unspeakable horror. Shadows danced along the edges of the forest, twisting into grotesque shapes under the pale light of the crescent moon. In the silence, there was an unnerving sense of being watched, an invisible presence that sent shivers down the spine and quickened the heartbeat. For those who dared to venture into the dark depths of West Virginia's backwoods, the name Indrid Cold was whispered in fearful reverence, a name synonymous with a chilling unknown. Known as the Grinning Man, Cold's unnerving smile and otherworldly demeanor heralds an encounter with the inexplicable, the terrifying, and the profoundly unsettling. Let's delve into the lore and the reality surrounding Indrid Cold. Hello everyone, and welcome to Wicked Encounters, where we explore just what goes bump in the night. I'm your host, Allie, and today we're going to put in some fancy black suits and sunglasses as we try to figure out who the heck is Indrid Cold. Indrid Cold, also commonly known as the Smiling or the Grinning Man, is a humanoid being with an unnaturally large grin, believed to be an extraterrestrial. Where Indrid Cold appears, UFO activity follows, but it's also believed he could be associated with the Men in Black, or Mothman. His first sighting was an unsettling event for two boys back on October 16th, 1966. It was around 9:45 p.m. when two boys, Martin Munov and James Yankaitis, were walking home below the elevated New Jersey Turnpike. Unpopular opinion, but I love driving that turnpike when it's the middle of the night. No cars in your way, massive shoulders with multiple lanes, and in 2 hours you can go across the entire state of New Jersey. Top to bottom, it's great. South End is better. The north side is just a bunch of New York wannabes. Sorry, not sorry. The boys were making their way home alongside a chain-linked fence. On the other side was the steep rise up to the turnpike, with brush, shrubs, and weeds poking through the lower links. As the two boys stopped to rest, Yankaitis noticed something odd. On the other side of the chain-link fence, where only the brush should lay, a man was staring at a house, the streetlights reflecting off of his odd reflective green suit. The strange man stood over 6 feet tall, with a broad chest, beady eyes, and an unsettlingly large grin. Yankaitis got Munov's attention and motioned to the large man, and as the two boys both looked, the large man looked back, his grin remaining as massive as it was when he was looking at the house.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
The two boys fled, later informing the police, as well as John Keel, paranormal investigator and the author of the Mothman prophecies, of what they had encountered. From it, Keel devoted an entire chapter to what he called the Grinning Man, though he focused more so on our second encounter. In the same book, Keel writes about how just a few miles away, strange UFOs had been spotted from quite a few witnesses, described as a white light that darted through the sky and behind the hills. While incredibly unsettling for the boys, it's far from the oddest instance of someone running into Indrid Cold. On November 2nd, just a few weeks after Munov and Yankaitis had their encounter, a sewing machine salesman, Woodrow Derenberger, was going to have the experience of a lifetime. Derenberger lived in Mineral Wells, West Virginia, and was returning from a business trip to Marietta, Ohio, when he had to stop to adjust one of the sewing machines in the back of his truck. Once he got back on the road, he noticed bright lights, and, believing them to be police lights, slowed his truck to a stop. As the lights got closer, though, he realized they didn't belong to a police car, or any car for that matter, but an aircraft in the shape of a kerosene lamp chimney. It came to a stop, and out of it came a perfectly normal-looking human, except for his arms that he kept folded up with his hands up under his armpits, and an unnaturally large grin. The strange man walked up to Derenberger's window and asked him to roll it down on the right side of his truck, but Derenberger said that his smile never moved, and that he was being spoken to telepathically. The salesman did as asked, and the man stood there asking Woodrow what he was called, which he interpreted as an odd way of asking for his name. Derenberger told him his name, and the Grinning Man asked him why he was frightened, following that up with, "We mean you no harm. We wish you only happiness." When Woodrow Derenberger agreed to be interviewed on live television on WTAP, the world got the name of the Smiling Man. I am known as Indrid Cold. Derenberger described Indrid Cold as looking perfectly natural and normal as any human being. His face looked like he had a good tan, a deep suntan. He was not too dark, but it was just like he had been out in the sun a lot. His hair was combed straight back, and it was a dark brown, and he seemed to have a good thick head of hair. His eyebrows, his face, his features were very normal. I don't believe that he looked any different from any other man that you would meet on the street. Derenberger's reported encounter had become a media frenzy. The live interview lasted 30 minutes, with Derenberger answering question after question from state police, representatives of the Wood County Airport, the Parkersburg Police, and the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Of course, soon after it aired, others came forward with claims that they too had seen a figure matching Derenberger's description of Indrid Cold. One man reported that a man matching Indrid Cold's description tried to flag him down, but he was too afraid to stop and simply sped off. Other people claimed to see lights and fluttering vehicles on the road Derenberger said that he spoke to Cold on, and several witnesses reported that they had seen Derenberger stopped and speaking to Cold. And I mean, what, you didn't say hi or nothing? You just thought it'd be fine to see what is essentially a giant Coca-Cola bottle rolling on its side with a man? It's weird. You're a liar.
You didn't really expect that, did you?
Well, the media eventually went off to the next hot scoop, something involving a bridge collapsing, I think. Derenberger said that he kept getting visits from Cold. It got to the point that even his family had begun seeing the Smiling Man. The attention the family received from the media had brought people from all around to hang out near their family home. Some hoped to catch a glimpse of Indrid Cold for themselves, while others were more than happy to heckle and scorn Derenberger and his family. He even wrote a book about the various meetings he had had with Cold, titled Visitors from Lanulos. But it didn't make the negativity stop, and Derenberger's family received years of harassing phone calls, lost jobs, and friends directly from the tales of Indrid Cold. Derenberger's wife even left him. He suffered horrible headaches and depression, and eventually he had to leave the area because of his notoriety.
I don't like change!
He did return a number of years later, before his death, where he suffered from delusions, believing that hundreds of UFO believers and skeptics were watching him. Not exactly the best way to go out, in my opinion, but Derenberger definitely had an interesting life after meeting Indrid Cold. You see his book title, Visitor from Lanulos? Well, Lanulos is the planet Indrid Cold came from, in the galaxy of Ganymedes, that's 14.6 light-years from Earth, and he took Derenberger there when, there's just an entire sub-arc and lore background for this guy. If we really want to start dipping into Lanulos, well, maybe next time. But let me tell you, it does involve a lot of Derenberger learning about the Smiling Men race, the culture, run-ins with the Men in Black. Like, this lore goes on and on. And this is also the second time that I've mentioned Men in Black, so you do know a video for them is going to pop up sooner or later. The third major sighting happened in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And no, it has nothing to do with the Mothman, unfortunately. That tie-in is actually only from the Mothman Prophecies book, and it's just a retelling of Woodrow Derenberger's encounter. No, Indrid Cold was noted as being in Point Pleasant, West Virginia from the Lilly family, as they dealt with poltergeist activity in their home. More than once, they had seen diamond-shaped lights throughout their home, and more shockingly, their daughter Linda had woken up in the middle of the night to see a man standing over her. She described him as so. It was a man, a big man, very broad. I couldn't see his face very well, but I could see that he was grinning at me. He walked around the bed and stood right over me. I screamed again and hid under the covers, and when I looked again, he was gone. Now, Indrid Cold isn't typically associated with ghosts and demons, but Considering the new theories we have, thanks to the government talking about potential interdimensional beings, I suppose the two could be more similar than I initially thought. But the Lily family also makes me think more of the Hat Man, a disturbingly consistent sleep paralysis demon that plagues humanity. But look at me just constantly referencing things that I'm sure you're not at all interested in. But say Indrid Cold isn't a cryptid, a demon, or an alien. What could it be? Well, the most obvious answer is simply, if he look like a man, walk like a man, talk like a man, he a man. Some people are just really friggin' weird. Don't understand social cues, come from different cultures, or just assholes trying to mess with you. Maybe your personal space bubble is just a little too big. I don't know. Did you ever think maybe you were the problem? But I mean, seriously, do you remember prank YouTubers? Remember how many of them got shot? I wouldn't be surprised if more than a few people would try to dress up like Indrid Cold and try to freak someone out. Now, other people do think that the Grinning Man could somehow be the physical avatar of the Mothman that we're able to comprehend. If you want to think of old thick-ass Mothy as a Cthulhu-esque abomination, then, it kind of makes sense, especially with how many have recently flocked to its statue and given it offerings like it's some kind of calling. And there's also the belief that the whole thing was made up for the Mothman Prophecies book.
It's false. No way. Not this time. We created it.
A lot of people back then, especially paranormal investigators that you come to know, they talked to each other a lot. Indrid Cold has become a rather notable character recently, with a few pop-ups in various media. The first time I actually ever heard about Indrid Cold came from the Adventure Zone podcast in their Amnesty arc. Of course, before that, he was in the Mothman Prophecies book and its movie, but he's also a trading card in the MetaZoo game, and more recently, he became the newest cryptid addition in Fallout 76. Don't shoot him, something happens. He's got a few really great creepypastas worth checking out on Reddit, and I'm sure the Sci-Fi Channel, Asylum, or Blumhouse could make an insanely great movie series about him. But what do you think? Do you believe Indrid Cold is out there? What do you think it could be? Have you ever had a run-in with the being known as the Grinning Man? Let me know in the comments. If you like learning about the unknown wonders and spooky weirdos of the world, why not like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification so you know when I post. To that note, thank you to everyone for hanging out with me and Indrid Cold today. You guys are seriously amazing, and I'm so very thankful for you. Thank you to my good buddies over on my Patreon, especially our VIP camper. If you like to check that out, I leave it down there in descriptions. You can check out the rest of my socials as well as the Wicked Encounters Discord server. Come join us, it's great. Well, with that, I'm Allie, this is Wicked Encounters, and I'll see you next time. Bye!